Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayo Mudinayet Nashtapraye Svabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyutama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Reading from the 10th verse, 24th chapter, 3rd canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavantam Param Brahma Satvenam Shena Satruhan Tattva Sankyana Vigyaptyai Jatam Vidvan Ajasvarat Bhagavantam Param Brahma Satvenam Shena Satruhan Tattva Sankyana Vigyaptyai Jatam Vidvan Ajasvarat Bhagavantam Param Brahma Satvenam Sena Shatruhan Tattva Sankyana Vigyaptai Jatam Vidvan Ajasvarat. Bhagavantam, the Lord. Param, supreme. Brahma, Brahman. Satvena, having an uncontaminated existence. Amshena, by a plenary portion. Shatruhan, O killer of the enemy. Vidura. Sattva Sankyanam, the philosophy of the 24 material elements. Vigyaptyai, for explaining. Jatam, appeared. Vidvan, knowing. Aja, the unborn Lord Brahma. Svarat, independent. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Maitreya continued, O killer of the enemy, the unborn Lord Brahma, who is almost independent in acquiring knowledge, could understand that a portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his quality of pure existence, had appeared in the womb of Devahuti, just to explain the complete state of knowledge known as Sankhya Yoga. Srila Prabhupada's purport. In Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, it is stated that the Lord himself is the compiler of Vedanta Sutra, and he is the perfect knower of Vedanta Sutra. Similarly, the Sankhya philosophy is compiled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his appearance as Kapila. There is an imitation Kapila who has a Sankhya philosophical system, but Kapila, the incarnation of God, is different from that Kapila. So some imposters present themselves as God. So Prabhupada is referring to one particular personality who claimed that he was Kapila and he gave his so-called Sankhya philosophy. But the real Kapila Dev took birth from the womb of Devahuti, and his father was Kardama Muni, not this guy. Prabhupada wants to make it clear. Kapila, the son of Kardama Muni, in his system of Sankhya philosophy, very explicitly explained not only the material world, but also the spiritual world. Brahma could understand this fact because he is Svarat, almost independent in receiving knowledge. He is called Svarat because he did not go to any school or college to learn, but he learned everything from within. When we go to school or college, are we learning? Or are we memorizing facts, so-called facts? Or are we learning to think independently, using our own intelligence? So here Prabhupada is saying Lord Brahma didn't go to any school or college. So he hasn't learned anything by being told, this is this, this is that. But he learned everything from within. Can we learn everything from within? Yeah, we could. Sorry? You could, but can you, is the question. Well, if you don't practice, you won't be able to. Just like if you don't practice playing the sitar, you won't be able to play it either. But if you do practice, then you can play the sitar. If you do practice getting knowledge from within, then you can get knowledge from within. How? Because Krishna explains it in 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto matasmityurgyanam apohanam cha. I'm seated in everyone's heart, and from me, within the heart, comes knowledge. So Krishna is also situated in Brahma's heart. So Brahma knows how to access that. And if we also take to that process, we can also access that knowledge directly from within. Clear? Because Brahma is the first living creature within this universe, he had no teacher. His teacher was the Supreme Personality of God in himself, who is seated in the heart of every living creature. There we go, confirmed by Prabhupada. I wasn't speculating. Brahma acquired knowledge directly from the Supreme Lord within the heart. Therefore, he is sometimes called Svarat and Aja. Another important point is stated here. Satvenam Shena. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears, he brings with him all his paraphernalia of Vaikuntha. Therefore, his name, his form, his quality, his paraphernalia, and his entourage all belong to the transcendental world. Real goodness is in the transcendental world. Here in the material world, the quality of goodness is not pure. Goodness may exist, but there must also be some tinges of passion and ignorance. In the spiritual world, the unalloyed quality of goodness prevails. There, the quality of goodness is called Shuddha Sattva, pure goodness. Another name for Shuddha Sattva is Vasudeva, because God is born from Vasudeva. Another meaning is that when one is purely situated in the qualities of goodness, he can understand the form, name, quality, paraphernalia, and entourage of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word Amshena also indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, appeared as Kapiladev in a portion of his portion. God expands himself either as Kala or as Amsa. Amsa means direct expansion, and Kala means expansion of the expansion. There is no difference between the expansion of the expansion, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly, as there is no difference between one candle and another. But still, the candle from which the others are lit is called the original candle. Krishna, therefore, is called the Parabrahman, or the ultimate Godhead and the cause of all causes. So this particular shloka is speaking about knowledge, how we acquire knowledge. Two ways, either directly from within the heart by being connected to Krishna, who is the source of all knowledge, or we go to a teacher and he tells us this is knowledge. The knowledge coming from Krishna is 100% true. The knowledge coming from a teacher may or may not be true. How many people agree with this? Yeah, because it's constantly changing. For example, you're taught in school that we went to the moon. America went to the moon. Right? That's what they teach you. How many people believe it? One only? How many people don't believe it? 4? How many people are not sure? 4. Okay. Well, last night I was up quite late because I discovered a proof that they never went to the moon. And so I was pretty excited, and I couldn't go to sleep right away. When you tell the truth is simple, but when you tell a lie, it gets very complicated because everything else has to fit in to be part of the lie. Otherwise, if something's off, then it exposes the whole thing. So for people who believe that they did go to the moon, what is the proof? Okay, that's one theory. I'm going to show that that's false, completely false. It only takes 3 or 4, maybe 5 people maximum to convince everybody else. That's all it takes. It's not that everyone else is lying. Everyone else is completely fooled. Everyone else. Here's how it works. It's T-minus 30. The astronauts are in their space probe, ready to go up. And television cameras are there, and they're counting down T minus 29. The rockets are ready to be, ignited, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden, one man comes, opens the door, and says to the astronauts, "There's an emergency. Please get out immediately." What is it? It's an emergency. Your life is on the line. Okay. They think something went wrong with the ignition systems or whatever, They don't want to die, so they come out. Then the door is the door is closed again. And then this person takes these 3 astronauts to a car, drives them far away to an airport where there's a helicopter, not just another place where there's a helicopter, takes them to an airport where there's a plane, flies them to an unknown destination. Meanwhile, everybody watching on TV, everybody in Houston, mission control, counting down T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off, and it takes off, but they're not in there.
And they got out in just 30 seconds.
No, they're out half an hour ago. You're not listening to what I'm saying. T minus 30 means 30 minutes. So they're already out. They're already on the plane flying somewhere else. And then they land, and then they want to know what the heck's going on. Then he explains to them, the reason we did this because your lives were in danger. We have many people who are bidding on contracts to do this, and they all want to make a profit, but one company, they wanted to make too much of a profit, and they did a poor job. And if you guys would have gone up, you would have lost your lives. It's the life support system. We tested it out. It was going to fail.
What about the previous journeys?
Hang on a second. Hang on a second. I'm just telling you.
This happened in every journey. There were several missions.
You're not listening because you're so convinced you don't want to hear the rest of it. I only started. So they object. Because on TV, everyone's seeing that it's in the sky, it's going on, and he brings them to a hangar where there's the lunar module already on the moon, and they say, "What the heck's going on here?" I said, "Well, we're going to have to do it because we can't, for the prestige of the country, we can't admit that we failed." I said, "But we're here. How are they going to prove it?" "Well, all those tests that we did, all those practice sessions, we have all your voices. We're just going to use all that." So everyone believes it's real. And they do that again and again and again. Now, what convinces the astronauts that they have to go along with it? Well, if you don't go along with it, you're going to be jeopardizing not only your own life, but the life of your family. What about our family? So they don't have a choice. They don't really have a choice. So now let's look at reality. Why do we believe such a thing? Did we do any research to find out? Let me ask you, how fast was the rocket going that reached the moon? Well, how many days did it take to reach the moon? No, see, you're blindly accepting it. You didn't do any.
I read about it, but I'm not.
Okay, they say it went 17,000 miles an hour and took them 2.5 days to reach the moon. However, all the latest figures say that the Earth revolves around the sun at 67,000 miles an hour because the sun is 93 million miles away. Now the moon that orbits the Earth is going at 67,000 miles an hour, right? The moon that's orbiting it, when it's coming this way, it's going faster than 67,000 miles an hour. And when it goes like this, it's going slower than 67,000 miles an hour in order to stay in orbit. You understand? Do you understand? Okay. They're going at 17,000 miles an hour. How in the world are they ever going to catch it? So let's say it's coming like this and they go like this and they're just waiting and it comes and then, but then how do you land on a body that's going more than 67,000 miles an hour in one direction and less in another one? How do you land on that? The figures don't add up. The modern figures of the speed of the Earth and the moon, they don't add up to the old figures of the speed of the aircraft. So some people don't believe they went to the moon because there are so many other reasons for it, and because Prabhupada said they didn't. But I just figured it out mathematically last night. It's a mathematical impossibility. That spaceship is going to now land on this moon that's traveling at least 5 or 6 times faster than the spacecraft. The only answer they have is that it's gravity, the magic word gravity. Except the gravity on the moon is 1/6 the gravity of Earth. It's highly unlikely that they were able to get fast enough to get that moon and then to actually go into orbit around it. They make it seem like it's so easy. They make it seem like this, that the moon is in one place, not moving. And they just go up, they go around it, land, and then come back. That's not the reality. The moon is moving at an incredible speed around the Earth. The Earth is moving at an incredible speed around the sun. The sun is revolving at an incredible speed around the Milky Way galaxy. And the Milky Way galaxy itself is moving throughout space at an unbelievable, unfathomable 670 million billion miles in outer space. And none of us feel any movement. And if you go to a lake, you see it completely like glass on a calm day when there's no wind. So why would they do such a thing? Someone would like to know. Well, like I said the other day, what if science discovered in 1976 that the Earth was not a globe? Not 1976, sorry, 1956. What if that happened? Then what choice do they have? Either say we're wrong, and then everyone says, well, that astronomy is bogus, cosmology is bogus, astrophysics is bogus because you didn't see it, you didn't know it. All those professors are out of a job. Everyone in NASA is out of a job. All the contractors that work for NASA and all the people, they're out of a job. But it's worse than that, because then all the people who were religious, they said, well, they come up and say, well, we were right all along. In our scripture, it says the Earth is not a globe. And it's stationary, it doesn't travel 67,000 miles an hour around the sun. Science is finished. So the ruling authority, what choice do they have? And who is the ruling authority, by the way? It's not just one country. It's the United Nations. They're all united. And why was it that at that time they made Antarctica off limits to anyone? No one can go there. Because that's the edge. It's the edge of Bharatvarsha. It leads into the next Varsha, Kim Purusha Varsha. So this is the knowledge coming from Srimad Bhagavatam. So we get the knowledge from Bhagavatam, and then we find out the flaws in the version given by the ruling authority, in this case, America and the United Nations. If you look at these photos, there's no blast crater underneath that lunar module, the landing module. You know, it has to come down and rockets fire to slow it down. There should be a blast crater. There's nothing on all 7 missions. It's completely clean. There should be dust have blown up. So much dust. And there should be dust all over. There's no dust whatsoever. And the words United States are very clear, crisp, and clean that anyone can see. The whole thing was staged. The more I look into it, the more it becomes crystal clear. And why? Because they're hiding God. Because they found out they were wrong and the scriptures were right. And their whole atheistic foundation is now finished. They discovered the handiwork of God as stated in the scriptures. Why did they not surrender to God? I just told you why. I gave you a whole list. You weren't listening?
Yeah, but you said that they discovered that they were wrong, and it's kind of direct proof that God exists. Why do not people surrender if they find the proof before their eyes?
Okay, I just explained it. I'll do it again. You weren't listening. It means that all of science now comes crashing down. We made a mistake. Cosmology is wrong. Astrophysics is wrong. Astronomy is wrong. So all these disciplines in every university of the world is finished. All the professors, all the teachers, all the people who wrote books, they're out of a job. Stephen Hawking, he's out of a job. He's considered bogus. You lied to us the whole time. And I'm saying the people there at that time who were, okay, so Fred Hoyle then. Carl Sagan. Okay, if you want people from the 50s.
No, I cannot understand how someone who finds a direct proof that God exists and that everything is the will of God and was created by Him in a certain way would consider these things, the jobs and everything, the science, to be more important than surrendering.
Well, look, you never heard of Hiranyakashipu? Or any of the other demons, Ravana? This has been going on forever. They want to kill God. They want to deny God. They want to take his position. It's been going on forever. It's nothing new. It's nothing new. So they faked the whole thing to carry on their hoax. What is the hoax? The globe earth model is the complete hoax. Then they have to admit we were wrong. But the whole globe earth, everything we've taught you is wrong. Is it easy to admit such a thing? How many people think it's easy to admit such a thing? Huh? You think it's easy. How many people think it would be very embarrassing, very difficult to admit we were wrong for 500 years? And then science, which has built itself up, all of a sudden comes crashing down and religion goes shooting up like anything. Everybody says we were right all along. Our religion was right. This science is bogus. Anyway, the point is that here in this chapter we describe the different levels of the universe, the different living entities in the universe who are celebrating the appearance of the Lord. Either Bhagavatam is right and NASA is wrong, or NASA is right and Bhagavatam is wrong. They can't both be right. It's not logical. They're completely opposed to each other. One saying black, the other saying white. And I gave the example, what Prabhupada said is, I have not done any testing or experiments to prove my position. You have not done any testing or experiments to prove your position. I'm accepting on faith my authority, and you're accepting on faith your authority. You didn't even know how fast that spaceship was going to catch the moon. No.
I mean, I read it, but I cannot.
Yeah, but you just blindly accepted it.
No, when I read the theory,
We all blindly accepted it. We all blindly accepted it. All of us. And then Prabhupada said it didn't happen. It was difficult for some of us to believe it. And those who had difficulty believing it, but I saw it on TV. Well, you also saw Star Wars, which is even more believable. Much better job. Do you know why there's no movie ever made about landing on the moon? This moon's about going out. There's this movies about going out into space, fictitious places and all over the universe, but not one single movie about landing on the moon. Why? Because if Hollywood could show an accurate depiction of landing on the moon, then people would say, well, maybe that's what actually happened. So they don't allow that. No one is allowed to make a movie about landing on the moon. It didn't land. Apollo 13 didn't land on the moon. It went into orbit, so-called. There was a problem and they came back. The whole movie is about how they got back safely. Right? There's no film that they went to the moon because that would be too risky. That we could perfectly show that we're on the moon and everybody knows it's made in a Hollywood studio. They can't take a risk that you're going to make that connection. So here we have the example of Lord Brahma. Prabhupada says, he is called Svarat because he did not go to any school or college to learn, but learned everything from within. We're going to schools and colleges and we're learning, but I'm saying, I asked the question, are we really learning? Or are we just given facts and told to believe it? Is it an education system that we're being given, or is it a belief system? It's a belief system, and it's a system of fitting people into the economic machine, training you up to enter into the economic machine. There's no education there whatsoever. You're just trained up to learn a particular aspect of the economy that you can enter into, to become a cog in the machine, to become a person who works for a particular company and makes someone else rich, the owners of the company, the corporations. So there's no education, there's no real knowledge, Real knowledge means that which you know for hundreds and thousands and millions of years, it stays the same. It's all just changing. You know, at the time of Einstein, 1916, 100 years ago, they thought the entire universe was the Milky Way galaxy. That was taught in every university, was believed by every scientist. Until Edwin Hubble discovered there were other galaxies, because they built a 200-inch telescope so that he could see better than anybody else. So then that changed in 1929. But before that, everybody believed the Milky Way galaxy was the entire universe. You just have to go back 100 years and look at the science books to see what they believed. They're in every library. Just go to your local library. You can see. So the first person on earth who said they didn't go to the moon was Prabhupada. He said it on July 19th, 1969. Or was it July 20th? July 20th, 1969. He said, one devotee came in, Prabhupada said, and he said to Prabhupada, they've landed, Srila Prabhupada, they're on the moon. Prabhupada said, what does it look like? Well, it's all just dust and rock. Prabhupada said, that's not the moon. He was the first one. Now there's millions and millions and millions of people who don't believe it, because the evidence is mounting up and up more and more. And you can only carry on a hoax for so long until people begin to see through it. You can fool some of the people all of the time, and you can fool all of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all the people all of the time. It's not possible. Someone's going to start investigating. So all those space probes that went up, there was nobody in them. They were in a TV studio in Area 51 in Nevada, which is completely off limits. No one can go to that area. Antarctica is completely off limits. No one can go there. Now, how do we expose this? I'm going to make a suggestion. I would suggest that all of you go to your person who, your church person, whoever you know as a minister or someone who believes in God, either the Catholic Church or the Romanian Orthodox Church. Ask to see them and say, look, I think, and many people think, that in 1956 they discovered God, the handiwork of God, the Creator, and they've kept it hidden from us. Why? The idea is just to ask questions so that the question goes up to higher people. We want it to go all the way up to the highest echelons. We want to create a buzz so that people talk about it. People ask the question. Hare Krishna. We should ask this question. We should get people thinking, because religious people will like this. And the more people talk about it, the more power this gets. Until finally, someone who's been carrying the guilt with them for so long, comes forward and admits the truth. We can just go out, chant Hare Krishna, and preach that like we're doing, but we should ask this question to people. That we believe that in 1956, science discovered the handiwork of God. Don't ever mention the words flat earth. Then they think you're crazy. Don't mention anything about anything like this. Just say that they discovered the handiwork of God and they're keeping it hidden from the rest of us. Why? They have the proof of the existence of God, but they're keeping it from the rest of us. Why? Just ask anybody who's religious, anybody who's in the church. Try and get as high as you can to the church elders. Just ask them that question. Eventually, after you leave, they're going to talk to their superiors and say, someone came to me and asked me this question. What do you think of it? People are going to start talking until it finally gets to the higher ups, the highest higher ups, until they start discussing this. Because science is hiding God. It's an atheistic philosophy meant to hide God and to fool everybody that he doesn't exist. And the universe was created spontaneously out of nothing, when nothing exploded. And that was called the Big Bang. In the beginning there was nothing, and the nothing exploded. And now we have everything that you see. And we believe this. They teach it in all the schools and people believe it. They're laughing at us. We're fools for believing such a thing. You know, if their theory about the sun going around the earth is the same, is true, right? Then why is it that Antarctica is so much more cold and has so much more ice than the Arctic? It should be the same. The sun's 93 million miles away. It's shining equally on the earth. It's not focusing on one area and not the other. It should be the same temperature at each of the poles. The same amount of sunlight coming to each of the poles. But that's not the case. And now we know that Antarctica is blocked. No one can go there. Over 50 nations have signed on to it. Originally there were 7 nations, and it's expanded. They don't care if the Republic of Congo doesn't sign on. They don't have any clout anyway. But all the important nations have signed on to this. Nobody goes to Antarctica. A few years ago, one vessel and a captain from Santiago, Chile, wanted to go to Antarctica, and he was going to go on his own at night. He wanted to find out what the heck's going on here. And he was stopped. By whom? Who's blocking everyone from going to Antarctica? The U.S. military. Sorry, you can't go any farther. Turn around, or we blast you out of the ocean. So he went back and it was in the Chilean newspapers. This is what happened. Why is the U.S. government, along with other nations who are signatories to the Antarctic Treaty, preventing everybody to go there? What's there that can be harmed? There's no life. There's no vegetation. It's only ice. Nothing else. It's not going to be an ecological disaster. There's nothing there except ice. Even the penguins only live on the edge where there's water. You go 1 mile or 2 miles in, there's no penguins even. Nothing. What are they protecting? They're protecting their theory of the globe Earth. Now I did further research. There's a shelf called the Ross Ice Shelf, named after Captain Clark Ross from the British naval, who in the 1800s tried to circumnavigate Antarctica. Previous to that, it was called the Great Barrier Ice Shelf. It was known as a barrier. They changed it to the Great Ross Ice Shelf. Well, he sailed around that for like 4 years. But if you look at the globe model of Antarctica, it should have taken less than 9 months. And he also reported in his log that all when they used the chronometer to judge their location, all the reckonings were off. Nothing seemed to work like normal as in the northern hemisphere. Captain James Cook in the late 1700s, he also tried to circumnavigate Antarctica. Same result. Took years and years and years. And there's no photo of a globe Earth. There's no such thing as a photograph. All of them are computer-generated images. How many people have seen the computer-generated image of a perfect circle of the Earth? Well, it's no longer a perfect circle because now it's an oblate spheroid. Scientists are saying it's an oblate spheroid, which means it's fatter in the middle and flatter on the top. It's not a perfect circle anymore. Well, then what were all those so-called photos of perfect circles if it's now an oblate spheroid? Anybody know the name Neil deGrasse Tyson? Okay, well, he's one of the well-known astronomers and astrophysicists in America. You've heard of him. Yeah, so he was on TV. And he said, they interviewed him. Yeah, it's an oblate spheroid. And he explained why it's an oblate spheroid. Because when something spins around like that, it tends to congregate towards the center. There's less in the top and bottom and more in the center as you're spinning around. The energy, the forces. But then what were all those perfect circles of the Earth that we saw year after year? It's being exposed slowly but surely because you can't fool all the people all of the time. When a lie is a lie, it soon gets exposed. And so we have a choice. We can either accept what they say or understand that the actual truth is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So here Prabhupada says, Krishna therefore is called the Parabrahman, or the ultimate Godhead, and is the cause of all causes. This you will not learn in any educational institute on on the face of the earth. No one will teach you this. If you say that, they'll think you're a religious fanatic with no brain, no intelligence. What do they do with people who speak the truth? They ridicule you. They don't say, well, here's the proof that we're right. They don't say that. They say, you're crazy. They ridicule you. They don't offer the proof to substantiate their position. There are so many red flags. It just doesn't add up. And there's no way that a spacecraft traveling at 17,000 miles an hour can catch up to an Earth traveling at 67,000 miles an hour, circle its moon, and then go back to that Earth at 67,000 miles an hour and land on it safely. Try and hit a moving target. Try and hit a moving target. How about if the target's moving at 67,000 miles an hour? You're going to land on it perfectly, no problem? What do you think, Valentina?
I think that if we doubt the data that we had previously, we should also doubt the data that we have now, considering the speed and everything else. Because it's not logical to doubt what we had then, because now we have new data and consider this to be true.
Well, who's giving the data? The same source,
Yes.
the same NASA.
And why do we consider this to be true?
You know what NASA stands for? Here's what it really stands for. Never a straight answer. So Valentina's right. We can't accept what they said before, then we can't accept what they say now. We can't accept them.
That means we cannot base our proof on the data that we have now from them, because it would not be logical.
Well, that means that the data they gave before also is not valid.
It might be, but if we say that the data that we previously got is false, we cannot base our proof on the data that we now have from the same source, if we say that the other one was false.
Well, here's the problem with that as science has progressed, they've discovered that this is actually the case now. Don't forget, science has... yeah, that's true, but, you know, how many people realize that the amount of computing power that they had to send people to the moon is less than what's in your iPhone? How many people know that? It's less power than computing power than what you have in your iPhone. It's a fact. So the whole thing is unraveling. And they knew, because they're intelligent, they're controllers, they're the ruling authority, they know that sooner or later this is not going to hold together, but let's push it for as long as we can, hold it together, and then just see what happens and play it by ear as we go along. Any other comments?
What about the comments in Srimad Bhagavatam where Srila Prabhupada says in his purport that people going to the moon are actually not going to the moon but to the Rahu planet that is invisible. And, well, common people can mistake it and consider that to be true. That means Prabhupada says that people going to the moon, they are not actually going to the moon, but they are going to this
Well, he suggested
gone somewhere.
that perhaps they went to Rahu. Now let's look at this. This Rahu thing is very interesting. For thousands of years, the Vedic astrologers calculated the eclipses by Rahu, that Rahu comes between the sun and the moon, not the earth. And they've always been correct. They've been accurate for thousands of years, you know. The scientific, so-called scientific version is that the earth comes between the sun and the moon. In other words, they're lined up exactly like 3 billiard balls. And that happens regularly. Perfect alignment. And they say that the curve that you see on the moon, that's the Earth's shadow, proves the Earth is round. It's not even the Earth's shadow. The Royal Astronomical Society has many cases. During an eclipse, you can see the sun and the moon both in the sky. They're not all lined up. It's falling apart. The story is falling apart. People doing research, people who are doubting it, are pulling it apart and showing this doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. Kishori and I flew from India to London, April 19th. And I sat by the window and I watched the horizon. It was completely flat for, 6,000 kilometers. Not any sign of curvature ever, the whole trip. Where does it curve? Now we're in this big plane that has 9 seats across. So I would look across the plane to the other window. And what did I see? I saw the horizon there also. If the earth was curved, I should have only seen sky. From the angle of vision from the other side of the plane. But it proves that the horizon is always at eye level. No matter how high you go, you look out at the horizon, it's at eye level. So I've been doing these experiments, and on the way back to India, I'm going to do another experiment that will prove it once and for all. Because if we're on a ball, and the Earth and these long haul flights that are going 6, 7, 8, 10,000 kilometers, there has to be a curve. The plane has to curve. And if the plane is curving around a ball Earth, the nose has to go down. So I'm going to carry a tennis ball with me. I'm going to put it on the floor. And I'm going to see. Because it should be always rolling forward. If the nose is down going around the ball. It won't be stationary. If it's flat, if the ball doesn't roll, it means that the plane is flat. Everyone experiences that the plane is completely level, horizontally level. Now, if the ball Earth is true and the plane is flat, then eventually, if it doesn't curve, you keep going off further and further away from it. You go off into space. So it has to curve, stay like that, which means the ball is going to have to keep rolling forward. So I'm going to make that scientific experiment. And I'm compiling all of this data that I've been discussing and a lot more that I haven't discussed for my new book, The Globe Earth on Trial. But that's a good point. I'll use your point in the book. If we use the data of the old days to substantiate it, and now the data's changed, how do we substantiate it now? Which data do we accept to substantiate it? It's a good challenge. Any other questions? Yes.
This battle between science and religion, and if the flat is round or is flat, if the earth is flat or is round, or they go to the moon, they went to the moon, they didn't. For a simple person, for example, my grandmother, she's a very simple person. She doesn't have a lot of school. She lived all her life in her village. For her, it doesn't matter really. For someone who wants to develop this relationship with God in his heart, it doesn't matter if the earth is square or rectangle. Or, I mean, maybe for some people it matters, but I don't see it. What does it matter to know who's right and who's wrong in the end? I was right and you were wrong. If you want to believe in God and have a relationship with Him in your heart, it's really amazing.
Well, that would work if there wasn't an educational system telling you this is the truth. But since they are, and saying this is the way it is, and if you don't write it on the exam, we fail you, and you don't pass, and you don't get a job, and you don't get money, and we think you're crazy, we may take you to the lunatic asylum for psychological examination, or whatever. Or you just stay in your village and you don't get involved with the whole thing. But just ask your grandmother and say, look, it seems that in 1956, science discovered the existence of God and they've been hiding it from us ever since. What do you think of that? Ask this question to everybody you know, and they'll ask someone else, and they'll ask someone else, and eventually we get a lot of people talking about it.
She would give me an answer something like, I don't know. I'm just a simple person that's fat and big, she knows everything, something like that.
Okay. I mean, that's her choice. And at her age, she believes in God. So we don't want to disturb her or anything. But for inquiring people who are younger and inquisitive and want to know the truth, and it's important for them to know the truth, ask that question. Of course, people who are atheists, they'll say, well, there is no God, But you have to ask religious people for this question. You find educated religious people. That's why I said go to your church. Ask the church people. The ones who are preaching on Sundays. We think that in 1956, science discovered the earth was not the handiwork of God. The existence of God, the proof is there. And they're hiding it from us. What do you think of this? What makes you think so might be a question they'll say. Well, Antarctica is off limits to everybody. No plane flies there. Nobody flies over Antarctica. In a globe model, it's much shorter to fly over Antarctica to get to another country instead of going just the direct route. No one does that. No one's allowed to. So in other words, these corporations that fly these planes and pay for the oil and fuel and everything, they have to take the long way around instead of the shortcut because they're not allowed to fly over Antarctica. It's off limits to everyone. No corporation can go there and explore for oil or coal or gas or natural or minerals or uranium. It's off limits to everybody. Absolutely everybody except military personnel, choice military personnel, and choice scientists who are closely guarded where they can go and how much they can work. This we know through interviews with people who have been there. people in the military who were there and spoke up. Said I was only allowed to go here and do this, and that was it. Anyway, for us it's not a problem because we accept the Srimad Bhagavatam. We accept the existence of God. Whether they're hiding it or not doesn't really concern us. But it does concern a lot of people, other people. And it would be nice to expose Hiranyakashipu or Ravana. All these demons get exposed in the end, and so NASA is going to get exposed. Anybody know, anybody familiar with the NASA logo? Yeah, he doesn't care.
My life is too short to care for this. So, waste of time.
But you did care when you were in the university because you gave the answers.
No, yes, but I learned only to take my grades and okay, you taught me stupid things. Okay, I learned. It's the same way here. So if let's say I'm here, so I don't believe anything here, but I stay here, and I'm like right now I stay, and maybe tomorrow will come a great Swami, and I will be, oh yeah, I'm so Vaishnav. So maybe I'm not.
Well, Shakespeare said, all the world is a stage and everyone in it merely players.
Yes, okay.
We're all actors. We're acting out different roles.
Also,
So you made my point that the only reason we wrote back their answers was to get pass the exam, get a job,
and
swell for the money.
yes, and about the person, the word person in Romanian is persoană, comes from Greek, and persona in Greek it's actor. The word translated, it's actor. So a mask. The actors wear a mask, so persona means a mask.
There you go. Well, it's true because we're all spirit soul and we're thinking we're the body. Right?
We have one short question from the internet.
Yeah.
So, if the Earth is like a plane, why the moon is round? It looks like a globe.
Well, a pizza is round. Doesn't look like a globe. We only see one side of the moon. We don't see the so-called dark side. So how do we know there is even another side? Could be just a flat disk, a circle only. There's no proof that it's actually a ball. But they say, well, all the other planets are balls, therefore the Earth must be a ball too. It's like saying, you know, oranges and watermelons and apples are balls, therefore banana is a ball too. It's like saying that. Completely ridiculous argument. Anyone who accepts that is fool number one. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.